Well, welcome to another episode of Talking with Friends. Today, we're excited to welcome back Tim, aka the Bard of Arda. And
Hello.
the last time, Tim, you were here, we were told people to find you as Glamdring Bowhammer, but let the record show that has since changed, and you are the Bard of Arda.
Yes.
And you can find him as such on the TikToks.
On the TikToks. The Bard of Arda.
It's a fantastic name.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the help, Callie.
Now, you want to talk people through that name change process real quick?
It's not Bardo Farda.
Oh.
That's all I need to say is it reads like that on TikTok. The Bardo Farda. They don't give you capital letters. I'm sorry.
You know what's funny is that, you know how TikTok just... by the time this episode comes out, TikTok will probably make another change to the way that they do things in that stupid app. But currently, you know how people's... it's not showing people's usernames at the bottom of their videos. It's showing, like, their display name, or... I don't even know what the word is.
Mine says Timmy DeMarco now, which will never change. So that's good. You don't have to worry about...
That is you.
Yes, that is definitely
right. But you can change your name in it if you don't want your full name showing.
Right. But that is, if you want to Google that, it's Tim. But mine says Andy INC, but I've noticed that the INC is capitalized in the display now.
Ooh.
So, do with that information what you will.
That would be nice if TikTok incorporated you for you.
Yeah. So, hey, TikTok just been doing their own thing. But go follow Tim, go follow Callie. That is your takeaway. That's your homework if you haven't done so already, dear listener.
And of course, Andy INC, as she just mentioned, who is the host of this wonderful podcast that we are on.
Oh, you big flirt.
Hashtag stamp.
Kisses and hugs. So today we are discussing the Houses of Healing and the Last Debate, which are, they're actually pretty short chapters. To accompany their very short sections of film. What was it that, Tim, did you count how many minutes it actually is?
It's about 7 minutes with little extra things plugged in the middle of these little scenes.
Right.
So, not a lot.
No, it is not. So, I think the Houses of Healing, if you want to rewind where you stopped last time and go to 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 10 seconds into the extended edition of Return of the King, and then literally watch 2 minutes, and then skip back to 3 hours and 4 minutes for the Last Debate.
Yes.
So yeah, I know that last time when Nick was here, he was trying to talk about the Houses of Healing, and I was like, back off, buddy. That's Tim's episode.
That's true. We totally were doing that.
I was like, we'll get there. I know, I promise. We'll get there. Because this part does show up in that section of movie that we talked about last time, but I was like, no, Peter messed it up, and so we're gonna, because before I didn't ever have to skip backwards. I would just add to whatever we were talking about, but we've got so many people signed up for chapters, I can't move them anymore. So that's just how it is. Who knows what will happen next? I don't think we'll have to do too much skipping forward. I mean, you can see us getting closer and closer to when the timelines are finally, syncing up. And our crew will be reunited at some point in this movie, and then we won't have to worry about that anymore. But, yeah, that's kind of where we are. So, when this part of the movie opens, we see Aragorn enter the Houses of Healing. As a movie watcher, you would not know that. It's an extended scene. So, I think it's really only there for people who do know what the heck is happening in the first place, and so there's really no setup for the scene because of the way that it was like added back in. I'm curious to wonder like how that editing process was. Like, was there more scene that also got cut that could have like set this up a little bit? But it's really like Éomer sees his sister Éowyn on the battlefield, does this like, I mean, heart-wrenching. I don't even think we hear the scream, but the face that he makes, that Karl Urban makes, gets me every time. And then it cuts to, it's clearly nighttime, Aragorn going into the Houses of Healing. And there are, so there's no really setup for what's going on. So I think that this is our chance to explain it a little bit, because there's a lot more to it, really, than just Aragorn coming in and, like, giving Éowyn a nice little cool towel for her forehead, you know? It just kind of looks like he's being a nice guy. But,
there's so much more in the books to it.
Yeah. Callie, do you want to set this up a little bit for people?
So
What the heck is he doing there? Why Aragorn? Like, so what the heck is he doing there?
Yeah, so they're in the Houses of Healing, and they've brought in their patients. We can talk about how Mary gets there in a moment.
Yeah.
Because that's a sticking point for me. I don't like, every time I read that, I'm not happy. But, so Aragorn...
I said, that's fair.
I have like a whole line in my notes of why, but the reason Aragorn is it's meaningful that he is there is this one of the women who helps or runs the Houses of Healing has this quote that she says, and it says, "The hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so shall the rightful king be known." So that is a pretty big tip off for us, because we have been hearing Aragorn being referred to as the rightful king of Gondor, and so Gandalf has this light bulb moment, and he's like, "Yorith, yes, you're a little genius," and he says yes, and so he's.
I love that, because they're basically like Tolkien takes 2 seconds to say that this black shadow, and later there's a poem that refers to it as the black breath, but like this sickness that the Nazgul can cause, where people are like people are stricken with it, fell slowly into a very deep dream, and then passed into silence and a deadly cold, and so died. And there's no cure for it, right? Like, if you get that, they don't have the mastery, they don't have the knowledge they need to fight that. And so Yorith brings up this old what would you say, like a old wives saying or something,
That's
like
sort of what she believes it is at the time, right?
And then Gandalf is like, oh my god, yes, duh, and goes and gets our boy Aragorn to help out.
Yeah, Gandalf's like, a king, you say? We have one. We have king. We brought one with us. Hey. So that is pretty cool. And I guess I had a question about that quote and that part. Like, did Aragorn learn? Does he? Because we see him in the earlier parts of the book doing some healing, and it's sort of, I thought, led us to believe that it was sort of learned elvish or healing, but then this quote makes us implied like he can do this healing not because of skills he learned from the elves, but because of a bloodline thing.
Right. It almost gives me like Sword in the Stone vibes. Like, whosoever pulleth out this sword, he is the rightful king of England. You know what I mean? Right. And like, whoever can heal these people of this super evil sickness is the king. I know that's not what it is, but that's the vibe.
So I think an explanation for that's actually given in this chapter, because Aragorn says, "Well, if only Elrond was here, because he's the oldest of my kindred."
Yeah, he says our race, and I was like,
our race, because of Luthien.
because of Luthien's line, because of the half elven split of Elrond's brother being his oldest ancestor. And I think after this scene a little bit later on, Aragorn and Elrond's two sons are the ones that go around healing all the rest of the people. So I think it is a little bit of the line of kings, a little bit of the elvish, but it's also the elves that we do know are from that same line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense. I feel like my brain just was like not reading that correctly. So yeah, that makes sense. And I do feel like, Elrond is the one who gets the Morgul blade shard out of Frodo's shoulder. Mm-hmm. And it always sounds a little bit like magical surgery when you read it about it in the. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's only like a couple of lines, but it does sound like that. And I'm always like, what? Like, how does elf surgery work? But in the same way here, like, Aragorn is able to, like, so we get to see Ethelas again, and if we remember, Aragorn used to help Frodo after he was stabbed by the Witch King at Weathertop in Fellowship, and so it's funny that they bring it up there and then never use it again, but Aragorn, in the books, he also uses it after Frodo and Sam are wounded in Moria. He's always carrying it around with him, but he's obviously out at this point and asks for it from the herb lore master, and he's like, "Oh, it has no virtue, the tar thereof." And he's like, "Oh, you're an idiot." But then some old man has it for his headaches or something, and he's able to use that. But that is when you see Tolkien write the steps that he kind of goes through to heal Eowyn and Faramir and Merry. The Ethelas is always the last step to kind of bring them back to the world of the living. He, like, does this thing where he, like, touches their foreheads and, like, their, you know what I mean? He, like, touches where they were hurt and he calls their name.
A bit exorcism-y, isn't it?
I'm like,
Definitely.
Aragorn is, like, legit magical right now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it just makes me think, like, has his whole family had this, like, special... I mean, I know that there's something to him being partially raised by Elrond, but at the same time, like, there were people before him who could have technically claimed the kingship, but we were obviously, as we've pointed out in previous episodes, they've been waiting for Isildur's Bane to reveal itself, aka the ring. They felt like they needed that, in order to, like, right the wrongs of the past. So yeah, it's just interesting to think about how that works. It honestly reminds me of, like, our Númenórean discussion that we had last time, where it's like, what does it mean to be a king in this situation? Like, is that a learned thing that he did just now? Or is he extra super special? Maybe both.
I think it's both, like we were talking about in the last episode that I was on for sure, where it's not only is he of the perfect bloodline, he was raised by Elrond in Rivendell. He had the greatest lore master that's left in Middle-earth to train him, on top of being who he is of his descendants. So it's definitely, I feel like he's the perfect example of what a Númenórean is, and I mean, it's shown throughout the trilogy.
Yeah. It's a really cool scene. I also think it's one of the only times that we really get to see Aragorn be kind of sassy, because he is so annoyed with them, like, not knowing what Ethelas is, and then
the artist talking and talking and talking and talking.
Yeah, there's a thing that
Gandalf is sassy too.
Oh yeah, it's so great. Just to, like, it's just so funny, like, seeing Aragorn kind of upset, like, he's not upset, but when Merry finally wakes up and he is, like, just, the way that they talk to, it's clearly they have this, like, teasing relationship, because, Merry is, like, he's kind of feeling like he's waited on a little bit, because he kind of is, but, like, he kind of recovers a little bit faster than everybody else. I think that's part Hobbit, part that he wasn't, like, he wasn't, like, as hurt. I I mean, he did have the black breath, or the black shadow, or whatever you want to call it, but he's just able to, you know, bounce back a little bit faster. And he's like asking for his pipe and stuff.
Yes.
And Aragorn is like, if you think that I have passed through the mountains and the realm of Gondor with fire and sword to bring herbs to a careless soldier who throws away his gear, you are mistaken. If your pack has not been found, then you must send for the herb master of this house, and he will tell you that he did not know that the herb you desire had any virtues, but that it is called Westman's weed by the vulgar, and Galenus by the noble, and other names in other tongues more learned. And after adding a few half-forgotten rhymes that he does not understand, he will regretfully inform you that there is none in the house, and he will leave you to reflect on the history of tongues. And I just imagine Mary being like,
where did that all come from? You okay?
But then Pippin is like, dude, your bag is right there. He knew that the whole time. Like,
and that is so cute. That is what a yeah. The moments with the hobbits are really precious. They really make a point of that to sort of, I don't know, contrast the doom and gloom of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and like they constantly point out how grim Aragorn is, and then you have like Merry and Pippin being like, meh.
Yeah,
just a bunch of silly gooses. But it's also nice because it's like, I love it whenever they like call him Strider, because you see like the duality of Aragorn. You know what I mean? Like he has this other side to him that is Strider. You know what I mean? And he even says that like that's going to be the name of his house, but like in a different word, but same.
Yeah. No, that was a great moment. Like the humbleness of Aragorn in this time, him arriving to the city, you know, bringing the army that so not the army of the dead like in the movies, but he did play, you know, a huge role in ensuring that the Corsairs did not make it there. They didn't come arriving with a bunch of ghosts. They just came arriving not with more enemies, which is still very good.
And like he brought men. He did, you know, he brought some people from the south with him,
rangers and stuff, right? But so he arrives in this city and he has every right to claim it as his own, but he doesn't, right? He chooses to camp out in the field. I
know that the movie doesn't do this because he obviously in the last debate scene he is in the Citadel, but it almost feels like them having him come at nighttime at the Houses of Healing was almost like kind of a nod of him like showing up and doing that secretly, even though they kind of throw it away in the next scene. But yeah, Aragorn doesn't openly enter the city. And who wants to go into more about why that is?
Tim?
So I was actually thinking about this when I was reading it last night. The Aragorn we see in the movies is so hesitant to be the king the entire trilogy, all the way up until he gets Anduril. And this is really the only time we get in the books where he's like, I can't do this right now. This is not the time. And at first, it's he still thinks Denethor is alive.
Yep.
He comes in. They keep saying the stewards in the Houses of Healing, referencing Faramir. But he still thinks, I'm not going to mess things up in the city. I'm not going to come in, claim the throne, start the strife with Denethor, because it's going to be a big problem.
Right, because he knows that people love Denethor. You know, like that's their leader, and they have been sticking by him. And he's like, I'm not going to like divide these people now of all times.
Even when he realizes it's that Denethor is gone and it's Faramir, but he's injured, he's like, no, I'm not going to do this yet. First of all, he has a lot of things to take care of. Second of all, he doesn't want to be that. So he puts Imrahil. He says, you're going to be the acting steward while Faramir is hurt. Which is, it's such a cool part, like you were talking about, Callie, him being humble in this scene. He has every right to just come in, raise his sword, of Elendil's sword, with the crown, with the elf stone, and do all of these things. But he puts it aside because way more to worry about than being the king and taking these things, taking this title up right now. And
it almost like kind of helps him that he secretly goes into the Houses of Healing, but like the Houses of Healing is clearly full of gossips, like the ladies that work there. I don't know what that's about, Token, but like Eorth is like, oh my gosh, I told you guys. Like, can you believe it? And so they start, like, whispering around the city, like, that the king has come again, but then Aragorn is, like, dead, tired, and so he goes to bed, and then everyone is like, oh, like, was that real? Like, did we just make that up? But it kind of plants that seed without him ever having to do anything. And, you know, Faramir, as soon as he wakes up and he's like, my king, you know, he's like, whatever you want me, I'll go, you know, and he's like, dude, just rest. Like, he just want to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that where the rumor mill starts to go, and they start calling him Elfstone, the name he was given as a child that he was going to, you know, grow up to be. He was given it to by his own people as he finally takes up his role in Minas Tirith, being the hands of a healer, being the hands of a king. It's poetic justice, just like Tolkien does in this entire trilogy.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like real full circle for Aragorn.
Yeah, and despite having all these lofty titles and names and everything, when he's addressed as Strider by the hobbits, and I think maybe it's Eomer who's kind of a little bit taken aback. He's like, is that how we will address our king? And Strider is like, yes, like I will be your king, but Strider will be the name of my house. And that really sets the tone for what kind of king he wants to be. And yeah, I really like that moment. And I think we trade off a lot of big battle scenes for these little tiny, very meaningful, very, very meaningful moments.
I know, and it's like, I think in the movies, there's so much around the hobbits that we've talked about before, where we kind of are just supposed to assume that everybody in the Fellowship is on good terms, you know what I mean, without them ever having to say anything to each other. But in the book, they're like ribbing each other, they're saying sweet things to each other, you know, they're speaking on very familiar terms, and I mean, like, who wouldn't? You've just been through, like, insane stuff together, and it always throws people aback around them, and also just, like, the way Pippin spoke to Denethor, like, he was like, okay, you know, like, they don't use, like, the fancy tone or words that people are supposed to, but everyone finds them just charming as heck, you know. And I think that there are so many little moments between, like, Merry and Pippin and Gimli and Legolas and Aragorn, and, you know, that don't get touched on in the movies. And, you know, I don't, like, sometimes I get it, like, of course, like, everything is different in a movie, but there's always just a few little lines that I think could have been made room for, to better demonstrate how close everyone is, you know? But, you know, the Houses of Healing, like, that wasn't even really added to the movie. So, hard to make a suggestion there. But I am kind of surprised that they don't name Ethelas in it, at the very least.
Yeah, you think they could have been a good moment for them to do a callback or something?
Yeah, because, like, movie fans know what that is. Like, they took the time to introduce it, and I think the reason is for this moment, not for the moment with Frodo. This is the time to use it. You know what I mean? Like, that it shows how he is the king.
Oh, and the descriptions of him preparing, Aragorn preparing the Athelas in the books is like, it's so.
I want to smell it so
you
bad.
Want to be there. I mean, it's like the best. It's like, it would be like a eucalyptus, you know, aromatherapy or something. Oh, it just, like, the descriptions made me feel better.
Not sweet, but wholesome.
Wholesome and fresh.
That's the way he describes it.
Fresh, like the freshest air that has never been breathed before. I mean, wow.
Would the kids call that crisp?
The nice crisp air.
Extra crispy. I don't know where I've seen that, but I think I've seen that somewhere. Do I sound like an old lady now? Never mind. Don't listen to me. If you you're under 30, I don't understand you. So, sorry. So, I will say that although this chapter isn't really featured in the movie, there is a line that movie fans may remember. And it is from Gandalf about Éowyn and Wormtongue. But in the movie, they give it to Wormtongue, to Éowyn. And it comes at the end of this passage, and I want to read the whole thing, because without it, like, I struggle so hard to not hear these last couple of lines in Brad Dourif's voice. So help me out, guys. Like, I'm trying to contextualize like what Gandalf is actually saying with taking away the ickiness that Wormtongue adds to it in the movies. So, okay, so here's the full passage. Think you that Wormtongue had poison only for Theoden's ears? He's talking to Éomer about Éowyn. Dotard, what is the house of Errol but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek and their brats roll on the floor among the dogs? Have you not heard those words before? Saruman spoke them, the teacher of Wormtongue. Though I do not doubt that Wormtongue at home wrapped their meaning in terms more cunning. My lord, if your sister's love for you, and her will still bent to her duty, had not restrained her lips, you might have heard even such things escape them. But who knows that she spoke to the darkness alone in the bitter watches of the night, when all her life seemed shrinking, and the walls of her bower closing in about her, a hutch to trammel some wild thing in. Like, it starts off, I'm like, okay, Gandalf, like, I kind of see what you're saying, and then I just hear Wormtongue, and I'm like, I'm out of it. I've lost what you were saying. Could somebody, like, help me parse this out? Like, what is Gandalf trying to tell Éomer in this moment about Éowyn?
Tim, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, Gandalf says or Éomer says to Gandalf that he didn't know that there was any frost in his sister until Aragorn showed up. So it really brought this big change about her. Mm-hmm. To go from serving Theoden, who was this feeble old man, to like, okay, now you don't have to worry about it anymore. Be yourself. In this time of war is when you really get to see. I like the ending line where it's some hatch to, I don't know the exact words.
Hutch to trammel some wild thing in.
And it's a perfect example of her, because she wants to go out and do the valiant deed. She wants to be that person, and to be kept behind the walls or behind the door was never an option for her. Éomer never saw it. Theoden never saw it. I mean, obviously Gandalf knew, but Gandalf has better insight than most. Mm-hmm. And thinking about the way that Grima puts it to her, it's like giving, like, if you come with me, like, we'll get you out of this place. Whereas in the story, Éowyn had to do that herself, and she did it with abundance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like, right, so it's like Gandalf explaining to Éomer that Wormtongue wasn't just, using his words to manipulate Theoden, but also Éowyn, and making her feel like, it reminds me also of, like, her words that she says when she wakes up. She's, like, kind of glad, like, she's sad that Theoden is gone, but she's also glad that he kind of got to go out the way that he did, because, like, it's very, like, Viking vibes, and, like, you wouldn't accept anything less. Like, you go down fighting, right? And doing something heroic, and it's almost like she was worried that her house would fall into this, ignoble, like, non-valiant, just, like, sitting by the sidelines and not really doing anything to fight the evil on the horizon, and that she was kind of feeling trapped, and, like, she didn't have a way to, what's the word that I want, to, like, achieve her goals, or, like, make things happen for herself and her family, right? Until Aragorn and Gandalf and Legolas and Gimli show up, and then things start to change. I mean, I think that is kind of why she has a crush on Aragorn, is that he is like literal winds of change for Rohan and herself, and not so much that like Aragorn even says here that he knows, like he knows that Eowyn like is crushing on him, but he's like, Éomer, she loves you truly. You know, you should be the one that's here when she wakes up. You know, you should be the one to call her. You know, he kind of hands the reins over to Éomer to, like, for those last few calls to Éowyn to kind of bring her back out of her sickness, which I thought was really, really nice too. I mean, he is there in the scene, which is great in the movie, but you know, she does look at Aragorn when she wakes up. But it would have been nice if he had walked away and it had been just her and her brother for a quick second of movie.
Mm-hmm. But have either of you, I mean, I was going to initially just ask Andy, but that's not, you know, I thought about it over a second time, and that's not fair at all. Men and women, have either of you ever felt constrained and pigeonholed by gender roles and what the world expects of you as a man or of you as a woman? Because I know, I identified so heavily with Eowyn, and I think this is probably the very first character that really made me connect with in the books, because I was raised in a farming family, and the gender roles and stereotypes are very conventional, I guess, there, or
Right.
and not very mutable. And I never felt like the other women, where, you know, cleaning the home and making the food and raising the babies didn't feel ever like enough for me. I wanted to be out doing the work. I wanted to be out, like, doing the quote unquote man stuff. uh,
Mm,
you know, I was always had a bit more of a feisty heart like that. My
yeah.
mother always was just shake her head at me and say, I have a daughter with the heart of a warrior. Like, what do I do with this? You know, and I'm like,
Oh.
sorry, mom. Like, I tried to do the ballet and I tried to do, you know, the nice domestic things, but they never, at that age anyway, felt as important or as worthy of valor as Eowyn would say, as the stuff that the guys were out doing. So I don't know. I have either of you in your lives felt
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I would say that, like, while my mom has always been, like, pretty supportive, I think that there is something about, like, oh, if we want to take an example, I mean, like, I never wanted to be out and, like, doing anything physical. You know, like, you know, I never felt, like, masculine and in that way, or any, I don't even know what the word that I'm trying to say is, but like, I mean, I always wanted to do my own thing. That is 100% sure, and mom can confirm that. Like, I quit ballet like almost immediately because they wanted me to braid my hair, and if you want to say wild thing, that could definitely be me. Like, it was like down to my butt, and I just wanted it everywhere. You know, and then I when I wanted to cut it short, I mean, my mom has always had, like, she would, you know, grow it out, cut it short, grow it out, and dye it, whatever. So that wasn't, like, a big deal. She was like, go for it, you know? You never know. It grows back, who cares? But then, like, my grandfather, every time I saw him after that, he'd be like, when are you going to grow your hair out? And he's like, he was just very much like, I don't like when women have short hair. And I was like, Granddad, I'll, grow it out when you do.
Oh.
I mean, it's just like, it's weird things that people get hung up on, right? That, like, they don't mean anything really, you know. But there's also things like when I started going to the gym. Like, I mean, I felt so intimidated. I mean, it's just like all these dude bros are like grunting and sweating, and I don't know. It was. I mean, it's like because I really like going, but it's also like I would so much prefer like a women or you know only type of situation. Um, just be just because I don't know. I mean, there's so many different ways that like I think we try to put ourselves in boxes, and also even trying to just meet other people's expectations for us. Because I think that there, especially as women, there is something that like we're socialized. Like I feel like we don't want to let anybody down. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, make anybody feel bad. And so there's like this constant struggle with like am I doing what I want to be doing, or am I doing this because it makes someone else happy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's huge. Yeah,
it's a rough balance because it's like, and it totally reminds me of the conversation that Aragorn and Eowyn have when he's like, that's your duty. I mean, to your people or whatever. And she's like, will I never be able to just live my life as I will? And he's like, few people can do that with honor. And I'm like, really? Like, right now? You're like, I don't know. It just hits me wrong. I'm like, Aragorn, shut up. Like, you don't get it. Because it's like, as a dude, he really doesn't have like the same expectations put on him, right?
Yeah. But it would be difficult as well to be, a man and be expected to be always tough and
right.
And that's what I mean.
When
if you're not
all of the men, even that are like, I mean, maybe Boromir is an exception, but a lot of the dudes that we know are a little bit. They're not like hyper masculine. I mean, like they kiss each other's foreheads and they hold hands and like there's like a lot of that in Tolkien. So it's almost like Aragorn. It's like dudes are kind of in a pretty okay spot in Middle Earth. It kind of feels like in a lot of ways. Like maybe not, but do you know what I mean? Like there are some things where it's like they get to be. I mean, there's so many instances where like they love their love that they have for each other is so apparent, and like they get to express that love. But then Eowyn wants to fight for her country, and it's like, no, don't.
I wonder what female persona or role model in Tolkien's life led him to create this wonderful character of Eowyn. Like, I wonder if there was someone in his life who he saw, struggling to be more than what roles her life had given her. And I would love to have met that woman.
Yeah, me too. Because you see a lot of these comparisons with. I mean, we know that he called Edith, Luthien to Noviel, right? Mm-hmm. And then Arwen is also kind of his callback to Luthien. But there's no really like talk about the inspiration for. I mean, that I've seen. Somebody else might know. Tim, do you know like inspo for Eowyn? Is that
not a direct inspiration? We got to think about this time in Tolkien's life. Okay. Is that he had adult children, and it could have been his daughter. It could have been memories of his mother, who had to be a mother and a father to him in a new land, in a new place with 2 young children. There's a lot of women that were really instrumental in Tolkien's life, not just Edith. And
right,
it's weird to like put it in that perspective how old Tolkien was writing The Lord of the Rings specifically, because he had so much inspiration to draw upon, not only in his own life but his epic legends that he'd already written. Thinking about the women of the First Age and before, he was writing strong women then, and it definitely carries over. I feel like a big part of it with Eowyn is telling. He definitely wants to tell the story of the underappreciated people. Think of like the Hobbit as his main characters, right? So in a war driven society like Rohan, where it is very Viking-esque, that there were strong women in Nordic history, and he made a strong decision and a great decision to push Eowyn to the forefront of this of our story, because it could just be faceless, nameless characters that win the battle, or one of our main characters who kills the Witch King. But we get Eowyn and Merry, two characters that in today's society we look at like, why aren't you gardening or cooking, raising the children? But Tolkien didn't look at it that way.
Yeah, it's great. It's like,
As somebody who does clean the house and cook the food and raise the children, there are so
God
many
bless you.
male
Bless you.
characters in the story,
Yes.
especially the hobbits that I know I live and look at in my life, where it's the hobbits weren't out, tilling the fields. Like, the men have to be out there, the women have to be in the home cooking and cleaning. Look at the men. The men, it's a matriarchal or patriarchal society, but not the way we have it today, where it's the men were cooking, the men were taking care of the house. That's what we see. Rosie Cotton's dancing in the fields, but who did she learn all this stuff from? Was her father Tom. That's such a big part of their lives, and it's less driven by gender, I feel like, and more like a unit, which is something that's really great about the hobbits, is that it is the ideal life, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, especially if you're, I mean, like, I think even if you're a working class, I feel like you probably get, I mean, Sam seems to get a lot of satisfaction out of his job. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something to, sometimes I wish, like I have a desk job, right? But there's sometimes where I'm like, I should be out doing something. Like, I don't think we're supposed to live like this.
Most definitely not.
Oh.
I just want to be a hobbit. That's all. Is that so much to ask, world?
Well, there's New Zealand. We can all move to.
I know. Like, let's start a commune where it's just like all of us from the Discord, and we have our own little community, and
We'll just go live in Hobbiton, and we'll live with Pickles the cat, and we'll.
Yeah, Bryn said that they're hiring. They're hiring over there.
They are hiring.
goodness.
That's right. If you can get your work visa,
what are the positions?
it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Am I qualified?
I will sweep the floor with a straw broom if that.
Yeah. Truly.
I will do
I
that.
know.
We digress.
That's all right. Was there anything else that you guys had about the Houses of Healing before we get into the last debate?
I mean, I have 10 million things I could talk about this chapter, but there's one specifically.
There we go.
And if you've ever heard me gush about things missing from the book, it's always the Merry and Theoden relationship. You brought up what Aragorn says to him after the fact, but Merry wakes up. He says, "I'm hungry. What time is it?" It's the first thing out of his mouth. And they're like, "Oh, this. What can we do for you?" He's like, "I want to smoke." Wait, I don't think I'll smoke. Because he calls back to the moment on the battlefield where he's talking to Theoden before he dies. And Theoden's like, "I wish I could have talked to you about herb lore," like they were saying during the ride of the Rohirrim, where they're just trying to get to know each other a little bit. And he thinks back, it's one of the last things he said to me, and he's like, if I smoke this, all I'll do is think of him and get sad. He doesn't want to do it. And Aragorn says, "Smoke then, and think of him." And in my life, it's like such a profound thing, where it's the things that make you think of people that you've lost. It makes those things hard to enjoy. But if you are thinking of it in that perspective, enjoy it. Think of your friend or your loved one that you did lose. And all I think about is Merry in that moment. Every time, whenever someone talks about, is there a quote from Lord of the Rings that gives you like hope or about loss? I think of that one. People are like, "What do you mean? Smoke then and think of him" is not very uplifting. But in the context, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I would say it's arguably my favorite.
That's what he
from the
needs
book.
to hear at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And think about all the times that because something is painful, we'll drop it, right? Like if something makes us think of somebody we've lost, and then we try not to go there again, But this is saying, like, no, like, you can feel those feelings and still enjoy your thing. You know what I mean? You can have both and, like, have those feelings that you have, like, enjoying that thing, be in remembrance of that person that you love. Don't just give up something you love because it's painful right now. And when you go and think about, like, in the appendices, and we learn about what Merry does later, I mean, does he not, like, become a lore master of herbs?
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me think of, oh shit, Tim, what have you done? Like, now I'm just thinking, like, is that partially not just his love of the herb, but, like, this was a thing that he had literally just said, like, this is going to make me think of Theoden. Is that not him, like, honoring his memory to the end? Like, I'm thinking about Theoden every time I do this.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to cry.
No. There are a lot of really sweet little moments like that in this chapter, and it takes up like 30 seconds of movie time.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good chapter.
I know. Like, I totes cried when Eowyn woke up, and at first she's like, is Theoden dead? And then they're like, yeah. And she's like, all right, but then she's like, make Merry a knight of the Ritter Marquis, for he is valiant. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. Like, her second thought after, like, coming out of a, like, coma is about Merry.
Yeah.
And that's so sweet. I mean, it's just crazy to think about how, like, because it all happened in such a split second, the fact that she is cognizant enough to, like, realize that he is helped her in that moment with the Witch King. Like, that's wild. It's amazing. They're precious. What can I say?
Truly precious.
Yeah, so sweet. So, do we want to last debate?
This was also a good chapter and deviated quite a bit from the movies.
Yeah. It's so funny because it's like, of course, like, the name of the chapter is coming from the moment where we're all trying to figure out what to do next, right? But we also get to see, like, Legolas and Gimli catching up with Merry and Pippin. It's kind of similar to when they catch up at Isengard.
Just where that, yep.
Yeah, where, like, Legolas and Gimli are like, okay, here's what's been going on while we weren't together. And this is the moment that we find out that, obviously we don't, like, in the book, we have seen Aragorn get the army of the dead, and then we see him show up at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields without any mention of the army of the dead, and he's got, like, men from south of Gondor with him, and of course, like, the Rangers. But here is where Legolas and Gimli explain that there's, like, it seems like there's a whole lot more fighting happening in the south of Gondor than it is ever really mentioned in the movie, and so it kind of makes my brain just, like, wash over that part. But there is, like, so much running and like, fighting, and then so, like, basically I feel like there's so many more ships, like, from the Corsairs of Umbar in the south than is really ever shown in the movie, and that is who the army of the dead helps them defeat before. And then at that moment is when Aragorn is like, your oath is fulfilled, not after being your trump card at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. But Peter being Peter, he kind of didn't really give himself a choice. Like, he kind of needed a get out of jail free card with the ghosts, with the way that battle was designed. But then this is where we find out that, and also in the last debate, they reference it again because Aragorn is saying, like, because we've kind of freed the south of Gondor, there's more men coming that weren't able to be at the battle. So, like, there's going to be all these new people coming so that we can then go to Mordor and not leave the city, like, unprotected. Right? That's kind of jumping the gun a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way that this chapter opens.
Yes.
I can picture the cinematography of it. Of just they Legolas and Gimli leave the battlefield and they walk through the broken gate, and I can hear the music, and they're just having a grand old time. Legolas is singing, everyone's staring at him. He's so gorgeous. Gimli's looking at the stonework, picking apart,
Oh,
like,
true.
that's nice.
That is so my
This is
dad.
not so nice. If only I'll get some dwarves here, it'll be great. We'll fix this place up, no problem. All the way up. You got to think, they walked all the way up to the Citadel. Callie, you've played Lord of the Rings online. It takes forever to get there.
Yes, it's so frustrating.
probably
I hate
having
this.
the best time, these two. If I could get in a whole episode of a TV show of just them walking up to the Houses of Healing, I'd be in heaven.
It's so cute.
Goodness. And Legolas pointing out that they need more birds and they need more, you know.
Yeah, there's like
Plants and gardens
here. Yeah. I love that. They're like urban planning Minas Tirith as they walk through the levels of the city. If only Anna were here, she would appreciate that. But she has
say congratulations. Yes.
Yeah, Anna has a whole little baby boy.
Hey!
And so wild. It's crazy. He's adorable and we love him already.
I love his name.
Yeah, Amos.
Amos. So Anna and Amos.
Yeah, it was always going to be an A name. Like her whole family is like A names. And she's like, A names only. So
Okay.
But,
yeah, I know. And then so they're walking up and
he's so cute.
Oh, baby! Yay!
Literally the best dressed baby. And I
very well
formed for him. Say it again, Callie.
I need to stop. This is so when I was training way back in school and doing some medical stuff and working in neonatal, it was a compliment between the medical staff to call a baby well formed.
She's not squished.
But I really should say it's a beautiful baby because people feel a little bit strange when I compliment them on having a well formed baby.
Does that mean he's not squished from?
Yeah, it means that he came out of the birth canal well.
He sure did. I was surprised too. Yeah, because I've seen some squished babies. Like somebody posts a picture like immediately after. I'm like, well, maybe
should have waited a day. You can tell which two of us haven't had kids yet.
Tim, were your babies squished?
No, they weren't.
Okay.
They were very well formed.
So well formed.
Well formed.
The most perfect of forms. But yeah, Anna's doing it. Anna's being a mom. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
She she texted me while I was at work and was like, "Can I FaceTime you?" And I had just entered a meeting with like my team, and I was like, "Guys, I've been so worried for like 24 hours. Can I call you right back?" And so like she FaceTimed me, and I got to see him, and it was like, a few hours after she gave birth to him. He was talkative. He had a lot to say.
That's good.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Good to have little lungs. Yeah.
Yeah. He's so cute.
Oh. We digress again.
I know, I'm sorry. It's crazy. So they're talking about how they're going to fix Minas Tirith after the war, and then Legolas is kind of like, all right, well, we can't really worry about that right now. And then they go and hang out with Merry and Pippin, which is, I just love it when these guys are together. It's just, it's always a great time. I feel like, they're just kind of hanging out and enjoying each other. And, it's like one of those moments where it's like you can see them, you know that there's more coming. Like, this isn't, they've won a couple battles, but they know that this isn't, like, the end of it. And they also talk about how, if Aragorn comes into his own, I think is how they put it, like, how they're going, like, how they're going to help him with the city and with Gondor in general. And, they're like, it's clearly like a hopeful little moment, where they're all just kind of like living in that one moment of peace of like being reunited. And again, very sweet and showing how close these, our little fellowship is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the line where it's like Pippin turns to them. It's like, "You're breathing. Everything's fine. If only for right now. Let's enjoy this moment, guys.
Yeah.
Please, can we just like have a good time here?"
Yeah. We also get a little bit of foreboding with Legolas. And he talks
It's
about
always
hearing the
foreboding.
gulls.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, his whole gull stricken.
I know. And they were
Very.
like, and I love how it's like all of them were trying to convince him to not go to the Havens. Like, no! Like, the Middle Earth is going to suck without you. We
You
need
got you got
you.
stuff to do. You could definitely lend a hand, Legolas. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
bro.
And now he's like, yeah, but hashtag goals.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting, and I think this was this reading for preparing for this was when that section of the chapter particularly struck me, because we're also for our book club reading about Hurden, and um, what was the first anyway? We
Tour?
hear Tuor and his coming to Gondolin. That's what I'm thinking of. And they talk often about the gulls and the sea and the beauty and the draw
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And so I was coming out of those chapters
Right.
and coming into this one. And even though it's such a brief mention, Legolas and the cry of the gulls, it really like came full circle for me this time.
Mm-hmm.
How much that
Yes.
means to the elves
I
and
know. And it also is like, I mean, they leave it out of the movies, of course. Like, I get it. Like, how would you even bring this up? Especially with the way that they use Legolas and Gimli. They're just not really. They don't have the same story, you know. But in Lothlorien, Galadriel, and like one of her parting words to Legolas is like, "Beware the call of the gulls," and Legolas is like, "Oh, okay, weirdo."
okay.
Yeah, like, all right, thanks, I guess. And then, you know, paths leading where they do, he ends up near the coast and sees the gulls near like the mouth of the river, I think. And then it's like, I mean, it's kind of like end game for him a little
He's
bit.
like,
Like,
"Oh no, oh no, it's the sea. Oh
yeah,
god."
what's happening to me? He's been a wood elf his whole life, and he's probably never even really thought about it too much, or
Mm-hmm.
been worried about it. And then suddenly, those damn gulls, like,
The Teleri starting to come out in him when he gets close to the water. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he says, "But deep in the hearts of all my kindred lies the sea longing, which it is perilous to stir. Alas for the gulls, no peace shall I have again under beech or under elm." Hey, yeah.
sorry, Legolas.
And it says a lot for him skipping ahead because that's how he thinks, but he stays forever in Middle Earth before he eventually leaves with his
Yeah,
buddy.
yeah.
And
Yep.
I know. I love that it's like those two go on to accomplish a lot of things in Middle Earth before the end of their story, and then I mean, it's like, what is it? Legolas builds his own boat. Like, is he the last elf to leave Middle Earth?
possibly because
Pretty
Celeborn's
close.
still around. Celeborn and Círdan are still around.
Okay,
Right? Círdan doesn't go with them at the last ship. But
sir, I
Celeborn's
don't
definitely
remember.
still around. I don't think
Yeah,
it's written. I don't think we have a date. It might be
yeah,
like he eventually did.
but it's like
But
it's pretty late in the game when Legolas leaves.
yeah,
All of our other main characters that we know left on the last ship have left.
and
Right.
everyone else is dead that didn't leave.
Right.
Besides those two. So
And
Aragorn dies, I think, the same year that they leave.
And I know that like Legolas's life, he's not really gonna age so much, but I mean Gimli's like old. Like,
Oh yeah.
I just imagine him like kind of looking like his dad, like with the white beard or something, and then they're just rowing. I don't know. I don't know why, but I always picture them in a rowboat, like a life raft. Like, just like these two, off they go. That's probably wrong. But every time I read that part in the appendices, that's what I see. Whose fault is that? Nobody's. That's just me. So I mean, the main guts of this chapter are about, Aragorn, Gandalf, Éomer, Imrahil, like the whole crew, talking about what they're going to do next. And can we have a refresher about Imrahil's role? I don't think we've talked about him very much, but we know that he's leading in Faramir's stead while he's getting better, but his role as Prince of Dol Amroth, am I right?
Yeah.
He, remind me who he's related to again?
So he's Denethor's brother-in-law.
Right, okay. Nice.
Imrahil's sister is Finduilas, who was Denethor's wife.
How old is he? Do you know?
Imrahil?
Yeah.
I'm not positive. He could be quite old. He has the elvish blood in him.
Right. I just always imagine, I guess because of the title Prince, I know you don't actually have to be young to be a prince, but in my brain that always makes him probably look younger than he's supposed to.
I've always thought of him as young and handsome.
Right.
Yeah, so
right?
do I. Yeah.
Why not? So he's there, everyone's there, and, I think that, so the movies definitely tweak this, right? The movie version is, I think we ultimately get to the same result, on this, but in the movie, the conversation is really led by Aragorn instead of Gandalf. He's the one suggesting drawing out Sauron's armies to give Frodo safe passage across the plains of Gorgoroth. But I really like the fuller explanation in the books about how they're kind of trying to trick Sauron into believing that Aragorn is trying to use the ring. Instead of just hey, and Aragorn even says something about we'll send out our full strength, which is 100% not what they try to do. They just try to bring enough to make it believable that they're trying to challenge Sauron, that because they are planning to leave a good chunk of men behind. They even say more than who were defending it when we started the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, to get Sauron's attention. And part of this, we talk about the Palantir again, and how Aragorn has used it, and before, I'm 99% sure that we talked about this before. Tim, you would probably remember better, but that Aragorn looked at it at Helm's Deep, right? And I really do understand moving it to this moment, but it's not so much because in the book Aragorn has the mastery. It's rightfully his. He wrestles the vision away from Sauron and is able to see the ships, of the Corsairs of Umbar, and it's all tactical stuff. It's war. It's that. But in the movie, we've got long have you hunted me, blah, 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 and he shows him Anduril. Wow, I almost called it Narsil. My bad.
Oh my goodness, that would have been
I know, I would have gotten eaten alive in the comments. I'm just kidding. I don't care what any dude bro says. But, so he shows him his sword, and then he's like, murmur, and then Sauron shows him Arwen appearing to look like she's dying.
This doesn't make sense to me in the movies, and I don't think we'll come up with some magic explanation for it here, but if you listen closely when he's looking into the Palantir, Sauron is chanting stuff in the background and showing him Arwen fading, and part of what he's chanting is he clearly says Silivren Pera Miriel, which is part of the Albereth Gethoniel, which is a prayer to Varda. So I don't think Sauron would be saying those words.
No.
The
Yeah.
exact
Anyway,
opposite.
anyway, it's a random aside fact. I
Wow.
don't know if any of the listeners are going to be able to come back with anything to help me there, but
They were just like having him say anything, I bet you.
they must have, yeah. And then it ends with Arbuzumishi Krimpatul, so, which one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. But so like it's like half an elven prayer and half the One Ring speech.
Weird.
It doesn't make sense. So there's something in the movie there that needs explaining to me.
I know. I kind of hate that they have Arwen. Like, I get it in that they used Arwen as like Aragorn's big driver in some ways in the movie, or like a big part of his storyline. I should say she isn't really like his motivation the way she should be. But I don't know. I'm like Sauron wouldn't know they were dating. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, everything that we've heard about what Sauron shows people, like, Gandalf even says it in this chapter about how the palantir cannot lie, but he can show you things that make you believe the wrong thing. He can use it to manipulate you. So, but it's always talking about, like, tactical, like, he's for sure showed Denethor how many forces he has, and to scare him. And we know he showed him the black ships and stuff like that. But Aragorn has largely been a secret from Sauron. None of the elves that have anything to do with Arwen, like, they're not using a palantir. Like, Sauron doesn't know what is up with his love life. I don't know. I mean, it's like, maybe there's some plausibility to him being able to read Aragorn's mind a little bit, but during that moment, but at the same time, like, Aragorn is supposed to have the mastery of it, if assuming, like, I think they kind of imply that they're using, I can't even tell which stone he's supposed to be using in the movie, but it's like, I don't know, they could have put something, I don't know, I don't really like putting Arwen there. Maybe they just really needed her to pop up again. I don't know. You think there's any feasibility to that?
They sort of weird, like, it happens when Elrond is talking to Aragorn way before they start their journey, and Elrond kind of says, like, her fate is tied to the ring now. So they kind of make it kind of nebulously, like, her life force is now tied, and in the way that we sort, like, in an extra way, we know that the elves are tied to Arda, but he makes it seem like Arwen's life force is directly like tied to the ring and to Sauron.
I hate it.
And that's the only reason I could think of that.
Right. And that
Sauron
makes it,
would know.
and if that's the way that they're going, that makes it even dumber that the Even Star crashes to the ground and breaks into a bajillion pieces. Not a fan.
Not a fan. Yeah, no, that was a very... it was dramatic, and it was... So the difference between the book and the movies and these two scenes, I think, like you said, is in the movies, Aragorn seems much weaker and, like, subject to that
manipulation.
That manipulation, whereas and he only really shows himself at the behest of the council and Gandalf's advice, but in the books, he chooses when to do it, and it's before this meeting, and he very much is more kingly in the books about it. He's like, okay, it is my time now.
When Gimli
he doesn't need someone to tell him.
Right, like when Gimli is like, oh my gosh, like, are you sure you should have done that? Like, did you tell him too much? And he's like, you forget who you're talking to. I'm Aragorn. Like, that's mine. That's my palantir. But yeah, like, it is mine to use. And it's like, okay, sure.
Just thinking back to the last episode when we're in the palantir and Gandalf gives him the stone and he's like, Aragorn's like, all right, I'm going to call him out. Gandalf's like, nah, you probably shouldn't out. Let's be a little bit more secret. Gandalf leaves. About a day later, Aragorn's busting it out at Helm's Deep. It's my stone. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm the king, baby.
Yeah, I'm a king, baby. Yeah, that's very Aragorn. Because I think that's something that doesn't. It's definitely not in the movie. Like, I mean, they take Aragorn in a different direction for sure. But in the appendices, it talks about how when Elrond tells Aragorn that he's the rightful king, he's like, hell yes! He's like, I'm on top of the world. You know, he's like feeling himself. And that's the moment when he sees Arwen for the first time, you know, and he's like, you know, he's like, man. And then that's when he feels like kind of stupid. He's like, wow, I thought I was cool a second ago, but now I'm looking at you and I feel kind of dumb. But I think there is a little bit of that, like the, you know, like the older version of Aragorn still kind of has a little bit of that, you know, like he knows he's the king and that is his to take, but he does do it in a very diplomatic way, of course. But then there's like stuff like the palantir where he's like, yeah, I can use this. And he's like, he says he had the strength, but barely, to take it away from Sauron, but still did it. But in the movies, no, he doesn't. I would say that was you know, he just kind of tells him that he's there, which I guess he accomplishes, but doesn't wrestle the vision away from Sauron. But you know, it's interesting, like, they kind of chop up this conversation because it really is mostly Gandalf. But you know, when we talk about you know, will not be won by strength of arms. You know, this is like Gandalf is saying, like, he doesn't think victory can be achieved by arms, but he still hopes for victory. I love it when I think it's to Imrahil, where he's like, he tells everyone that, like, it would be prudent to do X, Y, and Z, like hanging out in Minas Tirith and like stocking up and like staying in your like strongholds. And Imrahil's like, what? Huh? You know, like, that's not, he's, you know, and he's like, hey, I'm not saying you should do this, I'm saying you have done this. I do not counsel prudence.
Yes.
I love
like
that.
that.
It's such a cool moment. But in the movie, Gandalf is like, he's like, he reminds me more of like a grandpa, where he's like, oh, I've sent Frodo to his death, like, what have I done? He's like, there's no way that, and then that's when Aragorn kind of, they show him stepping up to the plate and being like, no, like, we can, you know, do then the whole diversion thing. And but when I just love the way Gandalf talks about it in the book rather than kind of how they do it in the movie, where it's like, yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like wrong, but like the way it's presented is a little bit more methodical, I think, in the book, where Gandalf is talking about Sauron studies the signs. You know, like, we've got the sword that robbed him of his treasure remade, the winds of fortune turning in our favor, and the defeat unlooked for of his first assault, and the fall of his great captain. So he's seeing all of these things, and Gandalf suggests calling out his hidden strengths so that he shall empty his land, you know, which Aragorn kind of says in the movie, and we must march out to meet him at once. We must make ourselves the bait, though his jaws should close on us. He will take that bait in hope and in greed, for he will think that in such rashness he sees the pride of the new ring lord. So the idea isn't just that Aragorn is calling him out because he is like a scary name for Sauron. It's part of it. It's part of it. But it's a bluff to make it seem like Aragorn has the ring and is too cocky and is calling him out that way. You know, he's like, I've got the ring. I don't have anything to worry about. And then he's like, idiot, I'll just like eat you up. So like that's the plan, not just like I'm the heir of Elendil and that's a scary name. Definitely is kind of scary, but more so scared that he may have the ring, because Sauron still doesn't know where it is. He knows something is up with the ring, but he's like waiting for someone to show that they have it, because it is, again, never entered his wildest dream that anyone wouldn't try to use it, that anyone would want to destroy it is absolutely out of the question. He's never even, I don't think that thought has entered his mind.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the strategy?
I think back to earlier in the chapter when Legolas is talking about seeing like the full glory of Aragorn. Like, imagine how scary it would have been if he
Oh,
did
yeah.
claim the ring, and for Sauron to be like, "Oh, he claimed the ring. Cool, this is my chance to win." Is a crazy proposition. But if there's anybody that could take out any kind of ring bearer, it would be him. And I mean, it's a really great plan. Realistically, I mean, they all know they're essentially going to die.
Yeah.
But it's either we go and we die, or we stay here and we die with no hope of victory for anyone else.
And is it not the same thoughts that Frodo is having, where he is like, he has that moment where like he thinks that everything is kind of over because he sees the Witch King leaving Minas Morgul, and he's like, damn, all my friends are going to be dead, and maybe I'll accomplish this. I don't know, but you know, his whole thing is like, he knows he's going to die in his attempt. Like, he's like, don't plan for the journey back, Sam. Don't worry about it. Like, it's not in the cards, buddy. He's like, all we could do is get it this far, you know. And then same thing for them. They're like, you know, if Frodo can survive to this point, it doesn't matter, you know, if we die, you know. And Frodo is like, well, maybe I'll be dead, but I'll have hopefully saved it for someone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're just thinking the same thoughts. Always. Aragorn and Frodo are always on the same page, I feel like. Like at the beginning of Two Towers, they're both like, man, I'm making all the wrong decisions, but what else can I do but keep going? And then I think it's kind of similar here. They're both like, well, we're fucked, but hopefully someone won't be. Someone else will survive this because of what we've been able to do.
So when I was reading last night, Gandalf's starting to like unveil the plan, and it's like, in this moment, is this the only time that we really get to see the true Gandalf? Where it's there's always like I wouldn't say like hidden meaning behind his words, but he's trying to accomplish something, because he cannot lead by force. We all know that, so he's trying to lead everybody in the right direction. But this is his last chance. This is our last opportunity to do it, and he like finally Gandalf uncloaked, and he's like, "This is what it is, guys." He lays it all out, like you're saying, very methodically, and we know it's a terrible choice to make, because everyone sits there in silence after he's done, until Aragorn's like, you know, we should probably listen to Gandalf. After his entire career in Middle Earth has been trying to beat this guy, listen to him now. And like, I have chills thinking about it. I listened to an audiobook version that had this awesome music in the background.
Nice.
So I can like picture it all in my head. It's truly like Gandalf, full-fledged. This is him. The last chance we get to see this character, really, in the whole trilogy.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because it's like we're going to see Gandalf go kind of toe-to-toe with the mouth of Sauron later. But here is the moment where, instead of leading by suggestion, really, and like kind of being more in the background and just like pushing people in the right direction, he's like, no, here's how it's going to be, you know? Like, even at the Council of Elrond, it's more like, he doesn't, you know, like, he doesn't push Frodo to do it, even though I think he knows that Frodo should do it. He doesn't tell anybody to do anything, but it all just kind of like works out, and like hint, hint, nudge, nudge when it comes to like Merry and Pippin. I do think that there is a point in here in one of these chapters where he just say like, thank goodness, you know, Elrond, I didn't listen to Elrond, and you guys came on the journey, which I love, because he's like, who knows what would have happened without you two, which I'm like, no. But, I think that was also more like, he wasn't like, Elrond, you dummy, obviously they should go. It was like, trust their friendship rather than wisdom. Like, it's more like, here's my reasoning. And why I think this should be, and in this point, he's like, no, here's the plan, Stan, and he just kind of like lays out why, what it is they're going to do, and then they just figure out how to execute it. So, I mean, maybe this is full Gandalf the White, but I still think that there is, like, the cutie patootie side of Gandalf still in there. Mm-hmm. Like, whenever he's around hobbits, I just think this, like, other side of Gandalf comes out. But he's a bit busy for hanging out with hobbits in this part. In these parts, I should say.
Mm-hmm. This big meeting of kings and generals all hanging out, and Legolas and Gimli and Merry and Pippin just chill in the House of Healing, probably smoking, shooting,
listening to the story of the Paths of the Dead, which Gimli will not tell.
I know. He's like, I feel bad about that. He's like, I'm a dwarf. I should have been fine. And it's like, it's all right, dude. It's okay. It was
Legolas is like, I didn't feel the fear because I'm not worried about these men's spirits. Like, oh, thanks, dude. Thanks for having my back, Legolas.
I'm like, okay. I know. I always felt bad for Gimli in the Paths of the Dead scene because he's the one like trailing behind everyone else, and he's the one therefore closest to the army of the dead, like feeling them following him, and he's like, oh, like. It's just was probably terrible. Yeah. Yeah. But really, this chapter ends with them deciding in about, 2 days' time, they're going to have, what is it? It's like, he like
7,000.
7,000. I was going to say 6. Yeah, to go out. Yeah, that's fair. Yep. And it's only like 1,000 on horses and the rest on foot. Mm-hmm. And then the Rohirrim are leaving a good chunk behind, as well as they know that some men from the south of Gondor are also showing up soon. So they feel pretty good about leaving Minas Tirith behind. Like, it will be defended, even if the gate is broken. But they're like, well, there's no way we're going to get that fixed in the amount of time we need. But yeah, it's interesting, like, thinking about Gandalf providing the timeline of, in 2 days, we got to get out of here to go, distract Sauron, basically. And I wonder, like, does he have a sixth sense about where Frodo is? Like, I know he talks about not knowing what's up with Frodo, but it's almost like, I don't know. It kind of feels like he has, like, a feel
his
for
sense of timing is pretty impeccable,
right?
I mean,
yeah.
at the first light on the third day of yeah, no, he seems to have some, because I mean, why not 3 days after all this time? Why not 1 day after this big
we
battle?
know nobody has slept yet. I mean, Aragorn slept for like a hot second, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's wild. Because we do know that everything kind of happens, like, boom, at the same time. So, I don't know. Just, I don't know what his connection is with the man upstairs, but it kind of seems like...
Pretty good connection, yeah.
Right. That's what it sounds like. He's just like, I just have a really good feeling about it in 2 days' time. I don't know what it is. But...
This day feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and similar to, like, where this spot ends in the movie is that they're, like, the second that I stop it is, like, when Aragorn, it cuts to him from his necklace breaking to him riding off to, they're off to challenge Sauron. They're off to Mordor. That's at, like, 3 hours and 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like, if we just let the movie go, you know what I mean? Like, we're like so close to the end, but there are so many chapters left. I mean, we still have
Almost at the end of book 5.
Yeah.
Book 6 is still untouched.
True. We have so next time we have the Land of Shadow and the Black Gate opens, and then so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I guess it's 4 more episodes of chapters, 2 chapters each.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I don't know. Now I'm just reflecting on this podcasting journey we've been on. It's crazy. I mean, this was like a harebrained idea I had at the end of 2021, and we recorded our first episode at the end of February of 2022. In case anybody stumbles upon this at a different point in time, they won't. But you know, so yeah, been going full speed ahead since March for sure.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, you've done very good, consistent work since then.
I try.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we were talking, and I think we said you were the most consistent of all of the podcasters.
Aww.
Yeah, definitely. You are like cutthroat once a week. Every like,
I try to. This week was kind of a fail, but as soon as we hang up, I'm gonna go edit some more while laying down.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah. So yeah, this is there any other thoughts about the last debate or anything we didn't touch on that you all wanted to speak to?
2 days is a long time to keep a sword unsheathed.
Yeah.
The last line of that chapter, he pulls the sword out. It's like, you will not be sheathed again until this battle is over.
Is he just eating his breakfast grits like that, or like?
Think of the size of that sword. My God, Aragorn! Just commanding, pointing at people with it. Let's go.
I can't put it back. I cannot put it back. I must be out. So.
I know, that's hilarious. I didn't even think about that. I was just like, all right, Aragorn, you weirdo.
That's an excellent point. It's the details that matter. It's the details.
I'm like, all right, Tolkien, whatever you want. Whatever you want Aragorn to do. Yeah. I know, it's interesting, we will see this later, but I do want to just remind folks that Éowyn, Faramir, and Merry are all staying at the Houses of Healing. They are recovered, if we want to say, but they are not recovered, and that they can go about their normal business. But in the movie, I know that Merry does go to the Black Gate with them.
They should all be resting. I know Éowyn's one arm is just shattered.
Yeah.
So there's not much she could do in battle.
Yeah, there's no sort of magical king healing that'll mend all those broken bones in 2 days, right? That's
And Faramir was like poisoned to the point of almost, he had a fever for days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just bounce back after that in 2 days. So, Merry probably feels like he could, but he does not get to go. And so later we'll see Pippin as our only representative of hobbits at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Which, it's just so funny because he's like the youngest little baby hobbit.
Yeah.
He does a
did a lot
job.
of growing up over
sure
this
does.
Story, though.
Yeah. Very much. Very much. And it's funny because I don't know, I'm excited to when we get to the end. I don't technically have the appendices on the list, but I definitely think that it's something that we should talk about once the chapters are over, because we do see a lot of, what happens with our hobbits, and I think that while I think that Middle Earth does most of the Legendarium is around like what's going on with the elves and the men, I just like I kind of wish that, but we have all of our actual novels kind of centering around hobbits, and I know that Tolkien tried to write a sequel, right? But it like depressed the heck out of him because he had like this new evil creeping into the world, and it wasn't like a big bad like Sauron or Morgoth, but and it just made him too sad, and he didn't finish it. And I'm like, sir, I know I wasn't around for you to ask, but you put so much about the lives of the hobbits afterwards. Why not just turn that into, like, you have the outline in the appendices. Why not just turn that into a novel? Like, that's what I want.
I'll read a book about Sam being the mayor of the Shire.
Yes! That's what I want. Like, give me more Eleanor.
Gardening. I will read that.
Seriously. Or, about, like, Merry and Pippin going and visiting Gondor. Or, just life with Rosie. Or
we get that
whatever.
One chapter in, is it Sauron Defeated? We get one chapter of Sam with talking to his kids about Aragorn's coming to visit.
Oh,
we get that one chapter. I can't. It's been so long since I've read it.
Right.
They're like reading the letter from him.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
That's all we got.
I know. I just think like if you really wanted to write a sequel, you could just like lean back into the Hobbit vibes and just give us immediately post Lord of the Rings with like how the Shire's doing, how they rebuild, how we deal with just, cute little things. Or, just like Hobbit politics. I don't care.
Instead, he just finishes the Silmarillion, which is this dark, depressing story.
What happened, Tolkien? What happened?
Poor MC. She's the podcast.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, she got through some of the more difficult chapters these last few weeks.
Yeah,
I think they were hard for her.
I know, and it's like I get it. Like this is where his heart, his life's work, right? But if I had been his publisher, I would have been like, sir, you remember that time I asked you for a sequel to The Hobbit? I still don't feel like you did that. So now you need to give us a post-loader, like, stay in the Shire, please. Stay in the Shire. Because I think it would have been really interesting to see more of his thoughts on... Because, at the beginning we have, like, the Shire being this kind of, like, closed-off society, but then you have like Merry and Pippin and Sam and Frodo for a shorter period, like becoming its leaders, and how it's kind of like Aragorn makes it its own thing, like governance-wise, but at the same time, I do feel like there is more cooperation. They are like doing more with the outside world at that point, and I would just love to see a juxtaposition of that Shire versus like the Shire we have at the beginning in like The Hobbit or at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, about how it has like changed for the better almost, like things weren't necessarily what they were, like it's a Malorn tree now instead of the party tree, which is, I don't know, like an oak or something, you know what I mean? Like things changes like that, and just how it like impacted Hobbit society, I think would have been cool to see. And also just like hobbits. Who doesn't want more hobbits? So next time we're doing the Land of Shadow and the Black Gate opens, which I think means we check in on Frodo and Sam, and we also we are gonna get we're checking in on Frodo and Sam, and we're getting the Mouth of Sauron, which is a part that I particularly love. So good stuff. That's good. So we have talked for a really long time, so I am going to let you go, listener. I hope you've enjoyed, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.